Hey guys, today I want to talk about how to get your visa for Vietnam. First of all, and most importantly, if you're using a US passport to travel to Vietnam, you must get a visa before you can enter the country. You cannot just fly into Vietnam, show up at the airport, buy a visa there, and go on in like you can at some other countries. Now, later on, I am going to be talking about something called a visa on arrival, but even that requires you to do some paperwork before you actually come to the country. So, before I talk about how to get a visa, let's go over some basic information first. There are about 20 different types of visas you can get for Vietnam. There's visas for business, education, etc., but I'm going to assume that everyone watching this video will be going as a tourist. A tourist visa is designated as type DL within the Vietnamese Immigration Department. I'm not sure if that's ever important to know, but I'm mentioning it here just in case. So there's a couple things you'll need before you apply for a visa. The first thing to look at is your passport's expiration date. Make sure it is at least 6 months after your travel dates, or else there's a chance your visa will be denied. There are some special cases where you can get a visa within that time frame, but it's better not to risk it. You're going to need passport photos. Go to your local Walgreens or CVS or whatever and get some made. If you're handy with photo editing, you can make them yourself. Just be very careful to follow the photo guidelines on the visa application. Alright, so the two main things you need to decide prior to purchasing a visa are A, how long you want to stay in the country, and B, how many times you'll enter and exit the country. Tourist visas can be issued for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or a full year. For this video, I'm just going to talk about the 1 and 3 month visas since they're the most common. While thinking about which duration you want, consider that you must choose your entry and exit dates at the time of purchase. You can arrive anytime on or after your arrival date, but you must leave by your planned departure date. So for example, let's say you buy a 30-day visa with arrival on January 1st and departure on January 30th. You can arrive on the 1st, the 5th, or even the 17th if you want, but regardless of when you arrive, you absolutely must leave the country by the end of the day on the 30th. So if you think you might need some extra wiggle room in your itinerary, get the longer visa. The next thing to consider is if you want a single entry or a multiple entry visa. It's basically just what it sounds like. A single entry means you can enter and exit the country one time. A multiple entry visa means you can enter and exit multiple times. So for example, if you want to leave Vietnam and cross over into Laos or Cambodia for a few days, but you only have a single entry visa, you would need a whole new visa to return to Vietnam. If you think you might want to do some border hopping, consider getting the multiple entry visa. Okay, so that's the basics of Vietnam visas. So now, where do we get one? There are basically 3 ways to get a visa for Vietnam: an e-visa, an embassy visa, or a visa on arrival. Each method has its advantages and disadvantages, so we'll go through them one by one. The e-visa, or electronic visa, is definitely the most popular method for US tourists. This can be done 100% online, doesn't require sending off your passport anywhere, and you pay only the bare minimum fee to immigration. You just fill out the application, upload your passport photo, and pay the fee. After it's approved in a few days, you print out the visa and take it with you along with your passport when you arrive in Vietnam. The e-visa is accepted as valid in pretty much every major airport, land crossing, and seaport in Vietnam. So the e-visa is super convenient and easy, but it has a few limitations. First, the e-visa is only valid for 30 days and is only single entry. There is no 90-day or multiple entry option, so if you need either of those, then the e-visa won't work for you. Another downside is that, as of the time of this recording, you have to manually check on the Vietnam immigration website each day to see when your visa has been approved. They will not notify you by email or otherwise. Overall, the e-visa is a great option if you only need a single entry and are making a relatively short trip. Look in the video description below for a direct link to Vietnam's e-visa order page. Now, let's talk about the second option, the embassy visa. An embassy visa is basically where you get a physical stamp or a paper visa to go inside your passport that comes from an embassy or consulate. By the way, from now on, I'm just going to be saying embassies whenever I'm talking about an embassy or a consulate. It makes no difference to us either way which one it is. The biggest advantage of getting an embassy visa is that, unlike the e-visa, you have options for 90-day and multiple entry. A second advantage is that this visa will be valid at any Vietnamese border, not just the major ones. So consider it instead of the e-visa if you think you might cross over at some obscure land border or seaport. Unfortunately, there are also several disadvantages. The first is cost. An embassy tourist visa will cost you $100 to $200 US, depending on your chosen options. An example is the 90-day multiple entry visa that I bought for $175. The second issue is that this method can be confusing because there are several legitimate ways to get an embassy visa. You'll find that different websites, even official ones, seem to have conflicting information. I spent a lot of time looking into this so you don't have to, so here's the quick and dirty on embassy visas. You basically have 4 available methods for getting an embassy visa: in person, online, mail-in, and email. 2 of these are awful options that really I'm just mentioning here so I can be thorough. Mail-in requires you to send your physical passport through the mail and is the slowest option, which seems like a lose-lose to me. And the email method requires you to send your credit card information over email, like just out in the open in an email. So both of those methods are just a big no for me. So really you'd have just 2 options, in person and online. If you live in New York City, Washington DC, or San Francisco, you can physically walk into your local Vietnam embassy with your passport photos, etc., and apply for a visa. You may need to return several days later to pick it up, or you can have it mailed to you. For the online method, you fill out a form, upload your passport photo and a copy of your passport, and they mail you a paper visa that looks like this. You then take this and staple it onto blank pages in your passport. This is the most straightforward method and the one I recommend. Check the video description below for a link to the Washington, D.C. Embassy online visa application. Whew. Okay, so that's that on embassy visas. And finally, we come to the third option, visa on arrival. A visa on arrival, or a VOA, is basically where you pay a Vietnamese agency to vouch for you, and it allows you to pick up your visa at the airport when you arrive. This one is actually pretty controversial. There's some big advantages, but also some potentially huge drawbacks. So let's dig into the details. Basically, the process works like this. You fill out an application and pay a processing fee to a third-party Vietnamese travel agency. Once you're approved by the agency, they send you an approval letter which you carry on the plane with you to Vietnam. After you land in Vietnam, you bring the letter, a visa application, cash payment, passport photos, and your passport to a special desk within immigration control. And, if all goes well, you get your full visa. So the upsides are pretty big. You can apply for any kind of tourist visa you want, including 3-month and multiple entries. The cost is much less than an embassy visa. Where I paid $175 for my embassy visa, you could get the same thing with a VOA for about $100 total. Also, if you need to get into Vietnam on very short notice, this could be your only option, as you can secure an approval letter in as little as a few hours, versus an embassy visa or e-visa taking several days. However, the downsides range from mildly annoying to disastrous. First of all, there is no official government agency that directly offers a visa on arrival. They are all third-party businesses that operate for profit. From my research, there's very little oversight to make sure travelers aren't being scammed or being issued fake approval letters. In fact, both the US State Department and the Vietnam Immigration Department have issued statements saying that the VOA process has been abused by scammers, and they both recommend getting your visa through the other methods. But let's say you find a visa on arrival agency you absolutely trust. The other downsides? You've got to carry the whole application packet with you, including approval letter, visa application, cash, passport photos, etc. And yes, you must pay in cash at the airport. The immigration office does not take credit cards. Also, the line for VOAs are separate from immigration and can potentially be up to several hours long in the busy season. Then, afterwards, you've still got to go through the regular immigration line. Talk about making a long day even longer. And the last downside is that a VOA can only be used at the following 5 international airports I've listed here. As of the time of this recording, you absolutely cannot use the VOA process at any land crossing, seaport, or international airport not on this list. So I feel like overall, a visa on arrival is only for emergencies when you need a visa really quickly. Otherwise, I'd rather pay a little bit more and have an official embassy visa already in my passport when I land. But you can make your own informed opinion. So there it is, the rundown on getting your very own Vietnam visa. I hope that was informative and not too confusing. Keep an eye on my travel channel because in the first 2 months of 2020, I'm going into Indonesia and Vietnam, including a 5-day expedition to the largest cave in the world, Han Song Dune. I'm also going to the island of Komodo, where hopefully I'll see some Komodo dragons. I'm Joe with Backpacking in Your 30s. I'll see you around the world.